Hello, everyone. My name is Amy Graham, and I'm an instructor here at Pragmatic Institute. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you today. Prior to joining Pragmatic as an instructor, I had extensive experience leading software and technology product teams through various stages of development, all the way through launch, both in the B2B as well as the B2C space. From my early days as an operations leader and even my role of Director of Technology Solutions, I've had the opportunity to work with smaller startup type environments as well as large enterprise organizations such as Bright Horizons. I've been a hands-on practitioner of these market-driven principles and these market-driven practices. As an instructor at Pragmatic Institute, I bring that real-world experience into the classroom, where I have the opportunity to mentor and guide and coach product professionals just like you to help you achieve success in this ever-evolving market. Today, we're diving deep into the future of product strategy, and I am thrilled to introduce our next session speaker, someone who truly embodies innovation and forward-thinking in product management. Noa Ganot, former head of product at eBay and now the CEO of Infinify, is here to guide us through the transformative power of AI in product strategy. Her session titled Stepping into the Future, Creating Your Innovative Product Strategy, will challenge us to rethink how we approach product development, not just by adopting the latest trends, but by strategically aligning them with our business goals. Noa will share her expertise on how to integrate AI and other cutting-edge methods into your product strategies to drive long-term growth and innovation. Whether you're looking to leverage AI for better market predictions or to craft solutions that stand out, this session will provide you with many of the insights that you need to stay ahead of the curve. Before we dive into Noa's insights on AI and innovation, I'd love to hear from you all. What emerging technology do you think will have the biggest impact on product strategy in the next 5 years, and why? Please drop your response into the chat if you'd like to weigh in. So let's get ready to explore the future of product management. Please join me in welcoming Noa Ganot to the stage.
Hi, I'm Noa Ganot, and now we're going to talk not about the future of product management in general, but rather about the future of your product, how to create an innovative product strategy. Before we do that, since we don't want the future of our product to be just random, we have to talk about strategy, right? About what we want to do and how we want to get there. But if we think about the word strategy, it's often overused or abused in the sense that it's this vague term that is not always clear, not always easy to understand, but yet many people use it all the time. Have you ever read a strategic document or a strategy document? Your company management told you this is our strategy. You read the doc, it all made sense, but then at the end you're like asking, okay, so what am I supposed to do with that? That is exactly the problem with strategy that I'm talking about. So to avoid that problem when we're creating our own strategy, we have to start by understanding what strategy really is. And if you look up the official definition, strategy is a high-level plan to achieve one or more goals under conditions of uncertainty. So there are a few things to note about this definition. First of all, it's a plan, a high-level one, but still a plan, not a general direction, not a vision. It is something that, like a plan, needs to explain to the readers how you're going to achieve your goals. Of course, that means that you have to have clear goals in mind. Otherwise, whatever plan you make, we have no way of judging whether or not it's a good one. We have to know where we want to go, what we want to achieve. And then the third thing to note about this definition is that strategy, by definition, includes uncertainty. Uncertainty is actually where a strategy is needed. If you don't have uncertainty, you don't need a strategy. Think about complexity, a complex project. For example, you're a contractor that needs to build a new building, a tower even. It could be really, really complex. And of course, there are many unknowns, right? Your workers might not show up to work one day. You might blow up a pipe throughout the works, and it would delay things, and you would need to reorganize your plans. But it's not an area of extreme uncertainty. Most things are well known before you start. So in order to build a building well, you don't need a strategy. You need a plan. You need very, very good monitoring, project management, making sure all the pieces are moving in the right direction at the right pace. But you don't need a strategy, even if what you're doing is very complex. However, in tech projects, in tech products, uncertainty is built in. It's part of our domain, whether we like it or not. And now I want us to look at what drives uncertainty when we're talking about creating tech products. So one dimension that often when I ask this question, this is the answer that I get. We're planning a strategy for the future. It needs to be long-term into the future. And the longer term we look, things are changing. Markets are changing, needs are changing. The world around us, our own understanding of what's going on, things are changing in the future. And that's right. That is one thing that creates a lot of the uncertainty in tech products, but it's not the only thing. And the dimension that many people tend to miss is that even if we ignore the future, even if we need to plan just for the here and now, there is still a lot of complexity and a lot of uncertainty. And the reason that it is so pervasive in tech products is that technology is very, very, very powerful. In a way, technology can do whatever you want it to do. As product managers, as product leaders, you have the authority, you have the responsibility to tell people which technology to build, which product to build, what do we want it to do. But these questions don't have clear, straightforward answers. It's a world of infinite options. If you have kids, you might relate to that. My younger daughter is 5 years old. She loves dresses. And every day before she goes to kindergarten, if I tell her, pick a dress, and she opens her closet and sees the many dresses that she has there, we are going to be late. It's going to take forever. But if I want her to be able to choose, I tell her, so today you can choose the red one or the blue one. Which is it? That's going to be much shorter. It's much easier to choose when you have a very limited set of options, but with technology and its extreme power, you always have infinite options. And that's what makes things complex. And that's what creates the uncertainty, because whatever you choose, it has many implications on many, many things you will be doing. I want to give you an example. Let's say, if I ask you, what do you see here on the screen? I'm sure everybody will immediately say it's a car, right? It's not a trick question. But let's say that you need to build this car. And let's also say that you know how to build cars. It's not that, I took someone who's not capable and told them to build a car. You know how to build cars. You're familiar with all the wiring and everything that needs to happen when you build a car. If I showed you this diagram and said, build this car, you wouldn't know what to do. Not because you don't know how to build cars, but because it's too generic. What will this car be used for? What is important about this car? There is no way you can tell from this simple line diagram. But if I show you this diagram, it's still a diagram. It's still an image. It's not a real car. It's not a photo of a real car. It's not even generated by AI. It's just someone literally drew it and created this illustration. If I showed you this one, you would know much better what is it that you need to build. What is this image telling us? This illustration tells us that it's probably for a company, right? Companies need their design here to actually connect the car to what they do, use it maybe as an advertising area for free advertising. Why would a company need a car with a big trunk? So it could be, some people tell me it could be like serving as a taxi. Could be. There are still multiple interpretations for this illustration. But let's say, for example, we'll take my interpretation. And if you have multiple interpretations to the strategy that your leaders are giving you, please ask them for clarifications and make sure you understand them the way they wanted to be understood and not just any random interpretation of what they said, which may or may not be related to what they had in mind originally. So another interpretation for this illustration is that this needs to be a company car for a company that, for someone that needs a large trunk. It could be for field agents, for sales reps, for technicians who need to carry with them maybe samples, product samples, or tools to fix whatever product they're fixing. And let's say that this illustration told us that this is the right interpretation. This is the level of desire of the original intention of why we're even creating this car. Once I understood that, I can immediately understand what is important about this car. So I can tell you that speed, for example, is probably not very important. The most important thing about this car is reliability. If this car cannot drive at any given moment, the company is losing money. This thing is not doing what it was intended to do, and it's not bringing the value to the company that it was intended to bring. Therefore, reliability is the most important thing. The next important thing is probably energy saving, because it's going to travel a lot and it has to be efficient. When it comes to convenience, there needs to be some convenience, right? The driver is probably going to sit there for many, many hours. But other than the driver, we probably don't care about convenience at all. And even for the driver, it doesn't need to be fancy. It's not a premium car. It's not a sports car. So by defining in greater detail, what do we mean to achieve and what we really want to see here, we're able to immediately understand many characteristics that otherwise would have been features, but we don't want them to just lie there without context. I'll give you another example of getting into the right level of detail in your strategy. So let's say that you're a startup. This is a hierarchy of goals. Generally, a startup wants to reach product market fit. This is like the holy grail of startups. But it usually takes more than one funding round to get there. So a sub goal would be to meet the qualifications for the next round. In order to get there, it translates to certain traction or revenue goals. Now, most companies stop there. So let's say that we have a goal to meet the $1 million ARR line next year. This is a clear, yet not a very good goal to build your strategy on, because this $1 million can come from many different ways. It is very different if you are looking to sell to a select few very, very large accounts and meet your $1 million goal that way. Then if you want to sell a much larger number of smaller accounts or smaller deals and meet your $1 million ARR goal that way. Or maybe you want to mix a few sizes. Each and every one of those will determine many things about your company as a whole. Do you need a sales team? Do you need to go with product-led growth? Do you need to deliver value to multiple stakeholders, or maybe start with just a single one? Do you sell top down or bottom up? Many, many, many things that eventually would also impact your product and the features and the technology, everything that is underlying what we're just talking about. So if you want to build your product strategically, you have to build a strategy. You have to take the level of detail in which you speak and your leadership speaks into much, much greater details until you can really feel it and understand why it makes sense and make sure that all the dots are well connected. Before we move on, I'll share a few more words about me. So I have over 25 years of experience as a product and technology leader. I was originally a developer, team lead, development manager, system architect, always in very, very complex systems, never with the help of a product manager. So in most cases, I did some of the product work myself. And then around 2005, I started a shift that eventually led me to product. I was a product lead at a company called Imperva. It's a cybersecurity company. I joined them when there were about 100 people, and I led one of the two products that they had at the time for 3 years until a successful almost $500 million IPO back in 2011. Then I moved to eBay, where I was head of product for the R&D center that they have in Israel, leading major initiatives within eBay's structured data group. And then I joined a startup called Twiggle. I was employee number 13, joined as the VP of product for a company that had an amazing technology, but no product in the market. Stayed with them $15 million later, and about 90 more people, and of course, customers, and strategic roadmap and metrics reported to the board, and processes and team and everything you would imagine. And that's when I started my own company. At Infinify, I serve as a product leadership and transformation coach, strategic advisor, and a product market fit guide to many companies. I have written a book called Speed Up the Journey to Product Market Fit. You can download it from our website through the QR code that you see here. I run a blog and about product and strategy and leadership, where I publish weekly articles about these topics. And as you can see live here, I'm a speaker at many events. In the company, just in a nutshell, what we do is I provide mentoring and consulting and advisory services to companies on one hand. And then on the other hand, I have an academy. Most of the programs here are in Hebrew, so probably less relevant to most of you. The online courses, though, are also available in English. Specifically, I have now one on product-led growth, and I give lectures at product team offsites, management offsites, and so on. 2 free resources for me that you can use. One is really the ebook that I just mentioned, and the other is the blog. They're both available to you here through these QR codes. They will also appear at the end, so don't worry if you miss them now. Enough about me. Let's get back to our topic. So today's topic is really, we want to talk about the future of your product. And as we just explained, if we want to create the future of our product, we want to understand where we want to go. So we have to consider many things. We have to consider business goals. We have to consider our strength, and yet the gaps that we see. We have to look at market segments and the various needs and profiles that we serve. We have to look at market analysis and what the competition does. We have to look at technology. And as soon as I mentioned, many of these, the technology, the market trends, all of these, you cannot ignore one term, which is AI, artificial intelligence. It has to be included. We cannot talk nowadays about the future of your product without talking about AI. That ship has already sailed. So the rest of this talk is going to be about creating your AI strategy for the future of your product. Many of the practices that I'll share here are relevant for your product strategy in general. But for the purpose of this talk, I'll be focusing on AI because it definitely deserves its own time and focus. So to start talking about AI, I want to give you a few examples, and I want you to think if that is actually AI. What you see here is me speaking on stage at a conference called Product Excellence. It's Israel's largest product management conference. That was 10 years ago. And my talk was on time management for busy product managers, and it won second best talk at the conference. The guy who won the first place is an amazing lecturer. Actually, whenever he gives a talk, he wins first place. He really is amazing. And his talk was titled something like How to Define Exactly Functionality That Needs to Be More or Less. That is, more or less was the title of his talk. Basically, what he talked about features that are algorithms that are not very clear in terms of the logic behind the scenes, and yet we need to write them. So what should the developers do? As product managers, we need to define the requirements. What do we tell the product managers? He gave this example of Waze. Waze's algorithm for calculating your ETA, right? It's estimated time of arrival. So Waze needs to estimate. As a product manager, if you just go to the developers and you say, okay, so estimate, they wouldn't know what to do. I mean, they could be extremely smart. They could go say, okay, fine, we'll do this estimation, and then go and develop an algorithm. But who said that it's going to do what you wanted to do? What is the outcome? And his entire talk was about defining requirements for these estimations. Now, is that considered AI? Providing an estimation for when you will arrive at your destination. Is that considered AI? I'm sure nobody talked about it as AI back then, but is it considered AI? I'll give you another example. Deep Blue versus Garry Kasparov. Is that considered AI? It's not a learning algorithm by any means. It's just a piece of software that processes a large set of rules. Is that considered AI? And the answer is not straightforward. We have to ask ourselves, what is considered AI, right? Because everybody's talking about AI these days. So really, what is AI? So I did what I had to do, and I went to ask AI, what is AI? And there are interesting things to note at Perplexity's answer to this very, very simple question. One is that AI had been here for many, many, many years. The term was coined back in 1956. That's more than 20 years before I was born. It's older than me. I'm assuming it's older than many of you here in the audience. So AI has been here for a long, long time. And AI is not defined as a technology. It's not defined as an algorithm. It's defined as the capability that machines can have to perform tasks that normally require or simulate human intelligence. So in that sense, both of the examples that I gave you, doing this, calculating this estimated time of arrival and beating Garry Kasparov in chess, they are both considered AI, although they have almost nothing to do with AI as we use the term today. Today, when we refer to AI, we usually mean generative AI. So first of all, I want you to remember that distinction. AI is more than generative AI. Generative AI is just one type of AI. But we cannot talk about it without asking ourselves why it's such a big deal. Obviously, generative AI is a revolution. But if AI existed many, many, many years before. Why is generative AI such a big deal, such a revolution? And the answer is that if we look at what AI could do before generative AI, these are generally the categories that that AI could serve. So it was used for analysis and classification, saying if something is A or B, for prediction and recommendation or generating insights. It was used for building knowledge over time and even natural language understanding and communication. I can share with you that these are things that we worked on at Twiggle, the startup that I was the VP product of. I joined them 8 years ago and they started even earlier. So these things existed even before generative AI existed. So what did generative AI add to the mix? The first thing is, as the name suggests, it was able for the first time to generate new content, not just to analyze and process existing content or any input, but rather to generate new content that didn't exist before. And the other dimension that it added was that it can now link and integrate multiple techniques to perform end-to-end problem solving and tasks that are closer in the way we look at it to what human intelligence would do. Don't worry, it's not even close to taking over the world and to having its own morality and deciding one day that the right thing for humanity is to eliminate us. So we're still very, very, very far from there. But in terms of what it does to our everyday life, it really is a revolution. And we got to a situation where AI is really everywhere. And it's everywhere for two primary reasons. One is that now anyone can use it. It's so much easier. My daughters use it. My parents use it. Everybody can use it. And not just that, almost anyone can build it. Not anyone entirely, but what before was only a skill that, you needed to have a PhD for, now you can integrate so many AI technologies that you can build many things yourself and create whatever it is you want to create. So that's why generative AI, nowadays called AI, is just everywhere. Everybody experiences it. Everybody wants it. That's why back in 2023, every boardroom, every board meeting had one conclusion. We must introduce AI into our product, and we must do it now. I'm sure many of you have heard this either directly from the board or from your management, the leadership. That's what the board wants. That's what we want. We must introduce AI. We must do it as soon as we can. We must do it now. But I'll ask, do you really? Do you really need to have AI in your product right now? It could be that the answer is yes, but you have to have a good explanation of why that is the case. And a good explanation cannot be because we can, because everybody else does it, because leadership wants it. You have to be able to explain coherently why AI is going to help you and how exactly. Your AI strategy needs to tell a story. It needs to be coherent. It needs to make sense. It needs to be logical, where your explanations, you have one point that leads to another and eventually leads to the conclusion that you must introduce AI, or this is the type of AI that you need to introduce. This is true, by the way, for any product strategy effort. You need to tell a story and it needs to make sense. But with AI, it's hard Well, it's really not trivial. Also without AI, but with AI, people just tend to forget all their common sense and just say, AI is a buzz. We must do AI. So you cannot afford to do that if you want to do it well. That's not how strategy works. And when it comes to AI, I'll give you one tip. Chatting with your product is not necessarily the right answer. In many cases, it's not even close. It's not what people want. It's not what's going to help them. So again, just because you can do it and integrate ChatGPT directly into your product, it doesn't mean that you need to do it. A few more words about strategy. Strategy is not a linear process. It's not like we're going to answer one question and then the other, and then like a math exercise, we're going to find the answer. There is no right answer in strategy. In strategy, you have to be patient. And like meat on a spinning griller, and I apologize if you're a vegetarian or anything, don't worry, we're not going to eat this meat. It's just a really good metaphor. We need it to spin. We need to look at it from all the perspectives that you can, from multiple perspectives, and you need to be patient to have things not quite fully sink in as you do so. You have to sleep on it. You have to let things connect at their own time, because when you spin around your strategy from multiple angles, eventually things will connect. Things will start to make sense. You will be able to tell a coherent story. So be willing to think it through, even when it's not 100% clear at all times. What I'm going to do for the rest of our session is give you a list of questions that will help you determine what is the best AI strategy for your product. You are not going to build a strategy within the 15 minutes or so that we have left, but you're going to sort of get a recipe for that strategy. So follow these questions and then just apply them later on when you have more time. That's perfectly fine, but I want to take you through the process. We're going to do it relatively quickly. You're not going to have time to do the proper research and thinking as I speak. So the first question that I want you to ask yourself is, what role does AI play in your industry? For example, do you already have AI capabilities in your product? What about your competitors? What is it used for? Is it table stakes? Do you have to have AI in your industry? Or maybe it's something that allows certain things to be done, but it's not a must-have. The question that you want to ask yourself is, why is it important? Again, because we don't want to end up doing AI just because we can. So why is AI important in your industry? What does it allow your customers to do that they cannot do without it? What role does it play? And you have here those applicative categories. You can use them as you answer. Now, it's usually not one-dimensional. It's not like there is a straightforward answer to the question that I've asked just a minute ago. So it could be that AI plays a different role at the different applicative levels here. It plays a different role in analysis than it does in natural language communication. You have to be able to get to that level of detail and understand the role that it plays. It could play a different role for different ecosystem players. I'm not talking about your direct competition. I'm talking the various ecosystem categories. For one category, maybe you can do without AI, but then if you go to another category, there it plays a very significant role. It could play a different role for market segments. For example, you can do very well without AI for large enterprises, but if you go into small and medium businesses or small and medium enterprises, there you're lost without AI. And it could be the other way around, depends on your own product and your own situation. It could also mean different things for customers at various maturity level. So for example, if a company is just starting to play with a certain technology, let's say that you can protect a certain technology. If a company is just starting to play with that technology, they are less mature to buy your product to protect that technology because they're just starting. As they evolve, they might be more mature to use your product. This is a very generic example. Same goes for AI. It could be that companies that perform, for example, a certain task, and I'm giving B2B examples, but it could be just the same for B2C. A company that needs to perform certain tasks. At the beginner level, they could do well without AI, but maybe as they grow, their complexity grows, and there you must introduce AI to be able to do it well. Again, that's just an example. You want to think about this in multiple dimensions. Another dimension is how you grow your business. Generally, and this is again related to strategy in general, if you want to grow your business, you only have these four options. You can either address existing problems that you're already solving, or new ones. And you can either approach existing market segments, the ones that you're already serving, or new ones. That gives you this 2x2 matrix. And at each quarter here, you can do different things. And when you look at it from that dimension, I want you to ask yourself, what can AI do that hasn't been done yet? It could be within your core value, within the top left quadrant here, what you already do for your existing customers. What benefit will AI bring if you bring into there? But it could also be that it allows you to break into different problems or to break into different segments. When you answer this question, you want to focus on what can it do for your customers? How can it help them? And we cannot do it right now, but ideally you want to raise as many ideas as possible and then select one and go with it for the rest of this analysis. So I'm not going to give you time to raise many ideas, but it would be beneficial if you have just one idea of what AI can do that hasn't been done yet, and let's test it together to see if it's a good one. What you see here is a photo of me and Marty Kagan. In 2022, I had the honor to be part of a small selected group of product coaches who were personally trained and mentored by Marty and the Silicon Valley Product Group team. And Marty talks in his books about 4 risks that any product manager needs to manage for any product: the value risk, feasibility risk, usability, and business viability. And we're going to tackle each and every one of them with my questions right now. So the first risk is value risk. Value risk means, is it going to be valuable for your customers? So this is the question that we're going to ask. What value will AI provide to your customers? You don't want to talk about features. Value is not features. Why do they need it? What will they gain by using it? And once you've done that, once you've fully understood what's in it for them, the next question that you want to ask is, how significant is it for them? Is it no news? Is it a nice improvement, but no big deal? Is it something major? Like, oh, okay, if you introduce AI, that means I, as a customer, can do very different things. Or is it maybe a whole new world? Like, take me to a whole new world of opportunity. Of course, the more significant it is, the more valuable it is. The next risk is feasibility, which is meant to answer the question, can you really do it? And when it comes to AI, this is a tricky question that you have to think through. Do you already have AI capabilities? If this is your first step in AI, it's naturally going to take you longer. Do you have what it takes? Do you even understand what it takes? Do you have the skills in-house? Another aspect of feasibility, even if you do, you've done AI before, how far are you from delivering delivering something valuable. AI, depends on what you want to do, could take years and years of research before you get to the breakthrough that actually gets you to where you want to be. Do you know where you are on this journey? Are you ready for the long-term implications of maintenance of AI? And most importantly, why should you succeed? It's really not trivial to succeed with AI. So if you want to convince someone that you should pursue this route, you want to be able to explain why should you succeed? What do you currently have that positions you on a good path to success? You have to be able to answer this question. The next risk is business viability. Is it good for the company? We've established that it's good for the customer and that we can do it, but is it good for the company? So how would it help the company? Would it increase revenue or prevent churn or open new markets? You can use the metrics that we had before, but it doesn't necessarily have to fall in there. It could be something like it will help you positioning yourself or the company as leaders. It will help you develop meaningful IP. For some companies, this is a good enough reason to pursue it because maybe your exit strategy is to be sold relatively early. And the main question that you have to ask yourself when it comes to business viability is it worth it? Another aspect of business viability is, can you afford it? Some data models cost a lot of money. I've known companies that paid a ton just for serving each customer. So think about what the customer needed to pay to not only cover those costs, but also to be able to allow the company to be profitable. Another aspect is time to ROI. How long would it take you to return the investment? It's not that there is a right or wrong answer, but these are kind of the things that you want to look at, that you want to consider as you do that. What would it cost you to maintain this over time? And are you ready for the commitment? AI, unlike other features, is a heavy maintenance. You know, if you think about the world 2 years ago, GPT meant nothing. But if your model needs to now understand what people are talking about, you have to understand what this is. The world changes, language changes, dynamics change, and therefore AI needs to be maintained over time. And that has implications on what you need to allocate to that effort, not just now, but moving forward. Are you ready for it? If you're considering all of that, is it still worth it? The last risk is the usability risk. And usability risks means, okay, so we know we can deliver value. We know they will want to get this value. Will they be able to actually get it through our product? And to be able to answer that, we must bring this general idea of what we do with AI to more earthy terms. What would it actually look like? Let's make it more tangible. So we want to see the high-level customer journey. We want to understand how well does it need to work in order to be meaningful. Do you have to be perfect? What if you have mistakes? If you're preventing heart attacks, maybe if you're preventing just 20% more heart attacks, that's amazing. But then what about mistakes? Can you afford mistakes? Which types of mistakes can you afford? If you're telling someone they have a heart attack, is that a mistake that you want to make? Is it better than not telling them that maybe you're thinking they're having a heart attack? It's not trivial. And to be able to answer that, you have to be willing to dive a little bit deeper, to dive in and dwell on the details to make sure that they're all well connected. And one word about mistakes, you have to manage mistakes. You have to assume that your model will be wrong, and you have to prepare for it in advance. You cannot just let it run freely and assume that those mistakes are going to be corrected one way or the other. So eventually for this, you have to ask yourself, would they use it? If I've done all of that, if I've given them 80% accuracy, would they use it? Is it good enough? If we introduce it and they use it initially, would it last beyond the initial buzz, beyond the initial hype of now, yeah, we have AI? Would it become a core functionality that people use? So now we have seen those 4 risks. I ran through them really quickly. I highly advise you to take all of those questions and give them proper time to think them through. But eventually you want to wrap it up and you want to create your strategy. So your strategy starts by defining the right goals and setting and explaining how you're going to get there, how AI is actually going to get you there. What are the priorities within the abundance of things that AI can do? What are the priorities and how you're going to manage the risks? Eventually, you want to be able to tell a story that explains end to end why it gets you, why this is the right thing to do in order to get to where you want to be. So here is a really, really quick, high-level structure for how you should be telling that story. You can start by explaining the role of AI in your industry by dimension. Most companies don't have AI. There are some companies that have AI. We have the opportunity to be the AI for healthcare company. Then you want to talk about what opportunities AI introduces and choose one and explain why it's a good one to pursue. And you can do that by addressing the 4 risks. To conclude, I want to remind you that AI is an extremely powerful technology, but it's not always the answer. You want to pursue it smartly. And just to tell you that it's not always the answer, I want to ask you what happened in 2012. What you see here is AI searches from Google Trends. And you can see that there is this peak in 2023. But what happened in 2012? Take a moment to think what happened in 2012 that caused this peak. I'll give you the answer. What happened is that song that came out, I Say to Pego, AI, everyone started searching that in Google. So don't believe things that people just tell you. It could be misleading. And don't go for AI if you don't understand how and why it's going to help you. Thank you.